Hello! I am sick of spending my time in the same 3 rooms every single day, so I have decided to harness the glorious power of nonsense and paint myself a tea shop to hide in. The first step was to sketch 3 panels onto a folded paper mock-up. This let me plan the view from my imaginary seat. I laid out the furniture, could see how to connect the lines between panels, and figure out the perspective. Perspective has never been my strong point, but I can honestly say that working on this has done absolutely nothing to improve that. I based the bones of my fantasy tea shop on a cafe in the south side of Edinburgh, which has a particularly good view of a wonderful music shop and an exceptionally cosy pub. I spent a good long time cozied up with reference photos and sketched lamps, teapots, patterns, and all the other elements I cared most about. I wanted everything in sight to evoke a feeling or have some ambiguity about it. I chose a wallpaper that reminded me of an old Edwardian drawing room, rich and grand and a little too much, the wallpaper equivalent of a particularly sticky slice of chocolate cake. I chose lamps that looked like they might have been bellflowers or jellyfish or seed pods, things that I might stare at in the blank moments when searching for ideas, things that might conjure up flashes of curious places and the lifetimes spent in them. I wanted squat teapots and delicate teapots and garish and elegant and grandfatherly and sleek teapots. Teapots that match my cups. Teapots that wouldn't match anything. A teapot for every feeling. And a pumpkin teapot because I wanted a bloody pumpkin teapot. Once I was happy with my plan, it was time to start on the real, fake tea shop. I cut 3 40 by 40 centimetre squares of plywood and sanded them as smoothly as I could without having to resort to the power sander, which I loathe. I gave each board a thick and even coat of white acrylic paint. Gesso would have given a much smoother finish, so use that if you can, but paint will at least give you a brighter surface than plain wood. Once dry, I copied out my design. Folding my mock-up into a grid and drawing the same grid onto my panels meant it was much easier for me to match up and scale the angles and proportions from my sketches. I checked my perspective by finding the vanishing point on each panel and checking all lines heading away from me went towards that point. I'm now adding in the details using my reference sketches, and then it'll be time for a good old badly filmed painting montage. This was my first attempt at a time-lapse, and my forearms honestly make it a bit flashy in parts, so if you want to avoid flashing images, you can skip ahead to the reveal. I'll put the timestamp in the description, and I hope I can do better for you next time. My adoration to the sorcerers who can paint detailed work without moving the piece around every 3 seconds. I think the secret to creating a view you want to look at over and over again is in making it really vague. If I paint figures in the pub window, then they're the same figures every time I look, doing exactly the same thing. But if I just dab a little bit of brown paint in with the orange, I can now see something's happening over there, but I can't see what. It lets your wandering brain make up stories. Maybe there's a band playing, maybe it's on fire, who knows? That said, I was quite specific with the instruments in the window. A bouzouki, a dulcimer, a baran, the world's crappiest trumpet, a large beetle pretending to be some kind of cello, and I want to play all of them. I suppose this public bookshelf would have been more accurate if I'd painted 7 identical copies of the Da Vinci Code and a guide to must-visit pubs that all closed 10 years ago, but strange adventure stories and cozy instructionals will just have to do. Going over everything in fineliner served the dual purpose of picking out details and wasting many hours of my life. I felt like the perfect people to keep me company were these ghosts because I hate drawing hands, and faces, and human beings. You spend several hours carefully working out proportions, and then surprise, you suddenly made one arm 7 times longer than the other. I like ghosts. The wallpaper took an entire geological age of time, and you may consider it thoroughly cursed. I've always loved tea shops with the random, chaotic mix of crockery. There's a word, sonder, that means the profound realization that every passerby has a life as rich and complex as your own. is that true of teapots? Think of the treasured porcelain heirlooms waiting in glass cabinets for the next very special occasion. The chipped, faithful, plump fellows you rescued from the university cafeteria. The grimy, grand old dames escorted home from car boot sales, glazes crisscrossed with cracks like thousand-wrinkled smiles. The one with the broken-off handle caked in dust, lying in state on the shelf until you give it a home in the garden and plant strawberries in it. How many different emotions have been quenched by tea from the pots on the tea shop shelf? How long until you realise that that pot, yes, that one up there, you used it 3 months ago, it's still got tea in it. There's an ecosystem in there. Note that I added a warm glow under the lamps, but didn't add any other highlights or shadows in the entire rest of the room, because I am lazy. I'd recommend protecting this by coating it in matte varnish, otherwise when it's folded up there's a chance the acrylic paint will stick to the other panels and the paint will get pulled off. I haven't got any matte varnish, so I guess I'm just going to be retouching this until I die. To hold it all together, I cut 6 strips of linen and hemmed them with a backstitch to make binders. To attach the binders so it would fold up properly, I laid the right panel face down onto the centre panel, and then laid the left panel face down on top of that. I then masking taped 3 of my binders onto the left panel. I carefully flipped it over, and then checked to see it was all still aligned. Then I taped the other ends onto the centre panel. I did the same for the other side. Once I was happy the bindings were in the right place, I completely smothered each binding in wood glue. I left it to dry completely, gave my tea shop an appropriate name, and waited for a properly rainy day. I think I can safely say that worked. I was expecting to spend another 2 days carving little feet for it so it could stand up by itself, but it's doing that somehow anyway, which is great because I can't be bothered doing that. This has been a lonely time for a lot of us. A thing I've missed is just getting to sit in a tea shop and eavesdrop on conversations that I'm not supposed to be eavesdropping on, and watching people pass by the window and feeling that comfortable kind of alone where you're still surrounded by life. I miss that little undercurrent of bustle. I find it so hard to focus when I'm stuck in the same place. I feel like my brain goes stagnant, and I usually cope with that by going people watching in a coffee shop and letting that background thrum keep my brain occupied enough from wandering away from what I'm trying to work on. And I felt like this project was a bit of a joke, kind of a placebo for real interaction. And it is a joke. I sat down with my tea and my sketchbook and just started drawing something just to film me doing something in my tea shop. And then I turned the camera off and I kept sketching for a very long time. Felt actual creativity happening in my head, which was lovely and weird. You don't need to make this out of plywood. I happen to be staying at my partner's and he had plywood and a table saw, so why not make it more permanent? But you could use cardboard. The first one of these I made was watercolor paper and it works fine. And it's not going to last a lifetime. And it's held together with masking tape that's peeling away because I couldn't find any sellotape. But you're just doing a painting that you can put around your face. That's it. Just something tall enough to block away the sight of the same kitchen counter you've been staring at for the last 3 months. I hope you enjoyed watching this. And I've learned a lot about how not to film a time-lapse. But yes, if you enjoyed this and you would like to see better quality time-lapses, please let me know. I'm excited for the next thing I'm going to show you. It's not anything like this video or the last one, although it is going to be instructive and boozy and suspicious. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you soon.